What essential elements should characterize business leadership today?
Well, I was previously mentioning that especially in medium or small and medium-sized enterprises, the specific weight of human resources is truly important, and therefore it is clear that leadership must first and foremost put people at the center of any development project, but in a genuine way, not just in words, and thus, first of all, respect for people and the culture of respect among the people. Then I believe that the main characteristics, which are those I have always tried to pursue, I hope successfully, but this obviously must be said by my partners, my collaborators, and not by me. Certainly inclusivity, therefore the ability to share and include people, and also to make them feel comfortable in an environment, comfortable with their colleagues, and comfortable with the company's organizational structure. Certainly, delegation is the ability to delegate, which means granting autonomy and responsibility, and thus creating an environment where mistakes are allowed, as mistakes are seen as a learning process. At the same time, however, people should have the courage to choose autonomously what they want. They are called to make choices and fully assume responsibility, never thinking that this is something that does not concern them but is someone else's responsibility. The ability to engage in dialogue, and especially the ability to listen, is crucial. For me, leadership is primarily about listening. I have never liked making grand speeches about involvement. Perhaps this is a flaw of mine, in the sense that I am someone who probably prefers to listen rather than speak, because one learns from listening. I believe that in efficient and effective leadership, the ability to listen is one of the extremely important elements. I have always tried to ensure leadership had a multicultural approach. In my companies, I have always welcomed and integrated people from other countries who had different cultures and often did not speak Italian, so they learned it over time, and I hope they always felt included as well. Feeling comfortable with colleagues and the organizational structure, so I would say that inclusivity and sharing, delegation, autonomy and responsibility, a multicultural approach, and returning to the point, a culture of respect, the certainty of never having unpleasant surprises from one's bosses, managers, or always colleagues. Mutual respect is fundamental regardless of the role and level one has in a business organization. I like organizations that are not very vertical, not very hierarchical, and very horizontal. I also like to involve others, people in projects where they can engage with the organizational structure, but have a project leadership that may be characterized by authority. For example, I used this system when I started hiring PhDs, that is, doctoral researchers in the company. Why? Why do you hire a PhD after they have spent years doing research? In the company, there are also very humble jobs, sometimes very repetitive, which are fundamental because they are the building blocks of the entire overall structure. The fact that I often assigned them, in addition to the organizational role for which I had hired them, project leadership roles based on their academic and research expertise, meant that I assessed their ability to engage with people who, within the organization, might have a higher rank than them. However, they did so. By connecting with the field, leveraging their authority derived from competence, and thus measuring their ability to manage complex and articulated projects and bring them to completion. I must say that I have always had very good results. I believe that in a company, one of the main elements to understand if people are happy is to see what the turnover rate is, how many people leave the company without the company wanting it. I must say that from this point of view, I have always managed to achieve very interesting results. People did not leave.
This question immediately brings to mind another related one. How have you valued talents within a company?
As I mentioned earlier, it is now interesting to talk especially about the last few years, because when I arrived at Bjolkim in 2008, there was a group of people with a very long experience in the company, very attached to the company, truly with a strong sense of identity, and who had the fortune of having a vast knowledge of the processes that were in place at that time, making them a really important resource as a platform to do more. However, I had to completely rethink the product strategy, the market strategy, and consequently, I had to integrate and adjust the organization in such a way as to tackle foreign markets and, above all, shift the product mix. More traditional products, ranging from commodities to more technical, sophisticated products, so-called special products. To achieve this, I needed to integrate the organization. And so, smiling, I always recounted this experience, saying there were three ethnic groups: the incumbents, who were the ones I mentioned earlier, that is, the people with a strong corporate identity, with a deep knowledge of the company's detailed processes, of how the company was at that moment, to which I added my team manager that I brought from outside, which could pose a serious risk in approaching this new company. We came from a competing company where we had achieved excellent results, and at that time it was the undisputed industry leader. So the risk was arriving as conquerors, and with the potential of having the overwhelming arrogance of success. We do it this way because we did it this way, and it worked, while I tried to ensure that people immersed themselves in the context we were in and chose the best practices. If there was already a best practice, it is, in being, do not change it, therefore do not change indeed for the sake of changing or to impose your guidance, your power. The third ethnic group, as I jokingly called it, was that of the PhDs I needed to hire, so people who spoke various languages, had scientific experience, and could fill roles in research and development, as well as regulation, in international marketing that were previously less monitored. Bringing together these three groups was a very interesting process, a beautiful challenge, and managing to create a unique team where, after a few years, it was no longer recognizable who had arrived first and who had arrived later was a great challenge, and we accomplished it. It is done through training activities, coaching, and some organizational tools like the project management one I mentioned earlier. And especially with this approach, I said, it is multicultural because foreigners from other countries and experiences have arrived who had specialized at the University of Bologna and brought their contributions of new and different things compared to what we already had. This has truly led to a great result. And I would say perhaps one of the results, I don't even need to comment on it qualitatively, but one of the main indicators, if we want to put it that way, is that there were no people leaving. In fact, in 15 years, there were only 2 or 3 at most. Often, even with very specific motivations, someone with personal motivations, which is why I must say that this is an indicator of something that has worked.